what's happening today has a history in the past. No, today just didn't happen. We have come to this point because of past
Yes.
events in our Philippine history.
You've told me the story before, is talagang bawal tumanggap ng pera, bawal tumanggap ng envelope, even if sinabing pangkain.
History does repeat itself. You're correct in that observation, Bianca. It does. The persons just change. The sound bites are the same. And the story flow is the same. It's very clear that part of the integrity issue is it the truth? Is it the truth? Are we putting out the truth? If it's not the truth, then we're not going to do it and we will not compromise. No? When you say compromise, it means giving in to the demands of your subject. So the truth is at the very center of the whole thing. So if they say the Pagcor story, let's go to that Pagcor story. There were attempts to call us up and say, hey, can we take you out to lunch? Yes, you can take me out to lunch, but I can't go out to lunch now because I'm busy. I'm doing something. I mean, they try to talk to you, which is okay, which is not bad, because they have a right as your interviewee to seek clarification on what you're doing. And we will clarify it. They will say, what are you trying to find out? And we'll say, we're trying to find out X, right? When they begin to prevaricate or they begin to exert pressure, which we can feel, right? They're trying to exert pressure for you not to do the story. That's when we stop and we say, I'm sorry. Or people who say, can we see the piece first, or can we read the script before it goes out on the air? And we say, as a policy in our company, we don't send you scripts of what we're going to put out. Neither do we invite you to preview what we're going to put out, because that is our prerogative as a investigative news magazine. Otherwise, we are for sale, right? Because we don't want any prior restraint on what we're doing and what we are producing. And we've had several instances like that. Pagcor did not try to stop us. Well, in a sense, we got into trouble with Channel 7, right? And we got kicked out. They pre-terminated our contract. But we stood by it, continue operating. We paid salaries. It was difficult. Admittedly, it was difficult because our contract had something like 6 more months to go, and they pre-terminated it. We were kicked out. They did not air our episodes, but we stood our ground and we said, we're going to do the story. But when they just didn't air it, right, which is their prerogative because they're the carrying station, we're only a supplier, right? But as a supplier, we have our rights, and we stood by our rights, painful as it was.
Yeah. Wow, that's so hard to stand your ground, but it can be done, I guess. That story also shares for me, parang mahirap, pero pag talagang yun yung pinaniniwalaan mo, paninindigan mo.
Yeah. Other people would say, ang tigas ng ulo nyo, or ang yabang nyo, or how arrogant you are. But my answer there naman is, I don't think it's arrogance. It's something that we have lived by all these years. You know, we were in operation for 25 years. And that's the mantra that we live by. Why are we going to exchange that for a blow on our integrity? What for? At what cost to our integrity, right? So I don't think it's being arrogant. I think it's just being who we are and who we decided we wanted to be. We wanted to make a contribution kasi to Philippine television. And the contribution we wanted to make was a positive one. By positive, I don't mean beautiful stories. That's not the objective. We wanted to make a positive contribution so that at some point in time, people will look back and say, hey, that show did well for Philippine TV. Yun lang naman ang gusto namin. You know, we could hardly stay awake because we were always put in the bottom. We were bottom feeders in a sense, no? So late at night when everybody's either asleep or unconscious or what. But we wanted so much to be on prime time. We didn't get it, but that didn't affect our main objective, which was to do good as a television company in the Philippines.
I absolutely think that was met, and that might be my personal bias. But I guess, one thing for me that I feel the whole probe profile has contributed is a generation of critical thinkers. Would you agree?
I hope so, because when you talk about millennials, some of them don't even remember that we once walked this earth, this television earth, right? Because we're already part of the past. But I hope that with our archives, I was telling you earlier that we do have a very deep archival library, 30 years old or even more than 30 years old, because I think our library started during the EDSA revolution. So all of that is really the first draft of history, all of the material that we have. And we have over, I think now we're over 10,000 or 15,000 tapes through the years. And in that archival collection that we have, you will see those personalities that you mentioned. You'll see them metamorphose from when they began up to where they are now. Of course, added weight maybe, they've become more beautiful, they've become better at their craft, but it's all there. And all of the events that transpired during that time are all in the archives. And we're very proud of them because now we're able to mine it. When we look back, for example, what's happening today has a history in the past. Now, today just didn't happen. We have come to this point because of past events in our Philippine history. So with the archival material, you can go all the way back and trace it to some point where it all began. And then you can say, what did we do wrong or what did we do right? Is it a mouthful, Bianca?
No, because you're right in that history does repeat itself. But I guess I wanted to go to that critical thinking question because now, again, I refer to the social media age. It's so easy. You see a news item, you see something, you react and talk right away, and it's just a lot of noise. So how do you think we can encourage more critical thinking at a time like this?
Social media is a double-edged sword, right? It can cut one way by propagating all kinds of fake news, by people inventing stories and actually passing them off as legitimate breaking news. It can also cut the other way, where because you have so much information, there are 2 points that can happen. One is you have information overload, so that it's like, I don't want to listen anymore. It's just too much. But there's the other half, where because of all of the information that comes your way and different sources, right? You're able to sharpen your discernment. You're able to study and try to sift through the material to determine who's pulling our leg, who's telling the truth, and where is the middle ground, where truth has to lie somewhere in the middle ground. It can't be all the way to the right or all the way to the left, because we do know that as people, we did say earlier, we do have biases, and your biases come into it, no? If it's a story about Mr. X, we don't like this Mr. X, so anything he says is really not acceptable. But the truth is somewhere in between. There might be a kernel of truth in what he's saying, and you have to discern it by looking at other sources to help you affirm what is being said or to have you reject the material. But it's tedious, Bianca, because there's so much material. And because there's a lot of material, there's a lot that you can mine for your own discernment. It's happening, and it's not an easy thing. When they were beginning to talk about this information highway many years ago, my initial thoughts were, that's great, because everybody now has access to the same thing. When we were operating, we were part of traditional media. We were like the gatekeepers, diba? You have a gatekeeper. No, only this story can come in. This story, no, hindi pwede to. We were that. But now there's no such thing. There's no gatekeeper. Everybody is now a journalist. And it's good and it's bad. It's good for those who study, for those who are very choosy, have a mature point of view about how to sift through news. And it's bad for those who are irresponsible or those who just want to count likes and count shares. But my feeling is for those that belong to that group, they will mature. They will get tired of counting the likes on their pages or whatever it is, and come to a point where you begin to discern. But it takes time. As we all know, our kids begin as toddlers, and then as they mature, their language changes, their choices change, their perceptions are modified. They begin to doubt their own beliefs, or they begin to believe more clearly about what they believe in. It's a tedious process, but traditional media there's really no more traditional media to speak of.
Yeah.
It's being challenged from all sides.
But I love hearing your point of view because there's so much knowledge, there's so much wisdom and tools that were present in producing traditional news stories that can definitely be applied to this new landscape of sharing information.
I hope so. Yeah, of course, there are, vetting is one thing that we used to do. We used to say, if somebody says something, you always have three sides to the conversation. One side, the left side, the right side, and then there's the middle side. And, Bianca, I remember one of the greatest compliments we had when we were still starting. We were doing stories on the NPA. So there were these conflicts. We were covering all of these ambushes and all of their conflicts. So we interviewed the NPA side, of course. We interviewed the military side without the two of them, and not telling one side, hey, we're going to interview the other side, right? It was into two separate operations. We received a comment from the military side saying, we watched your piece and it was fair. And we gave time to the NPA. We went up to their lair. We went up the mountains to visit their lair. And the military people, we also went up. And then in the middle, we interviewed the victims of the war, where the real story is, because they're the ones that suffer the effects of the conflict. So one side says, they're espousing community, they're doing this, they're doing that. The other side says, the military is doing this, they're burning the villages. And then the poor villager in the middle says, we don't know where to hide. Sometimes there was this man that told me, and I'll never forget his soundbite. Kuminsan gusto lang namin magtago sa isang butas sa lupa para lang makaiwas dun sa mga bombang naririnig namin at yung away ng militar at ng NPA. Hindi namin alam kung saan kami lulugar. So, it rings in your ears because this is like, whoa, this is the victim of the conflict. And then you begin to ask, why don't they think about the victim instead of themselves?
That gives me goosebumps because we were just talking about it later, how we must learn from the archives and the events of history. And yet again, we find ourselves hearing the not exact, but very similar stories still happening until now.
History does repeat itself. You're correct in that observation, Bianca. It does. The persons just change. The sound bites are the same.
Yeah.
And the story flow is the same. Sad, right? Very sad. It's like we never learn. It's like, where have we been? All time, di ba nagawa na natin to?
Di ba mapagdaanan na natin to?
Nabenta na yan? Bakit natin inuulit ito? I mean, yeah, sad. Really sad.
But that's why it's so inspiring and empowering to hear the story of how you continue to put out stories. And I wanted to end with this because your journey has taken you in many, many different paths. And a lot of people who are watching and listening are in that space, trying to figure out where they're supposed to go. So what would your advice be to everyone watching and listening to help figure out what they're meant to do and the path they are supposed to take?
Don't be impatient with yourself, because even if you are a late bloomer, you will bloom as long as you have an objective in mind. And I'd like to suggest an objective. I'm into love of country because I have seen in my career as a journalist and as a Filipino that truly this country is worth uh, giving it our best, whatever it is. In all the stories that we have done on Probe, there is one conclusion that I have come to. The Filipinos are exceptional in many ways. Exceptional, really exceptional. And we have come across many of them who have sacrificed, who have given of themselves to make this country a better place to live and to be a part of. Love of country is such a big concept, and many people will say, love of country. How can you love your country? In small ways and big ways. In small ways, by being a citizen that cares about this country. The first thing is, please vote, because it is your chance to make your stand known. What do you stand for? Anong paninindigan mo sa buhay? What do you want for this country? All of the other countries around us have moved forward. And I personally think that the Filipino is excellent over and above all of those who have moved ahead of us. Funny as it may seem, that is my staunch belief. And that you have to begin by appreciating the country that you were born into. Don't abandon us. Because if people like you, the young people who have a chance to make a difference in this country, abandon us, sana tayo. Maybe, like they say, pupulutin sa kangkungan. But I object. I think there is so much more that we can do, because I've seen it in pockets all over, in the stories that we do, in the people that we meet, and in people like you, in young people like you, Bianca. The hope is there, and we must never lose hope. You know why? It's the only country we have. And as a last point, we all, even if we do have different walks of life, different careers, different profiles, we all share one thing, and that's the Filipino name, Filipino.
With everything happening in the country right now, I felt that it was so important to re-release part of this conversation with the Cheche Lazaro. If you want to check out the full episode, it is available here on Spotify. I'm going to put the episode link in the description box, but you can also just type in Cheche Lazaro, Paano Ba To? Or Cheche Lazaro, Legends Only. Part of the episode is also on YouTube. Yeah, ang dami nangyayari. Honestly, the whole week I was trying to put together into words how I feel about everything happening in the country right now. But to be honest, it's too difficult. Maybe because it's too painful. Maybe because eto na naman tayo. Hindi na to bago. This has been happening again and again. But what are we gonna do about it now? That, for me, is the most important question. And I hope that this episode with Ma'am Cheche, her words of wisdom, are able to spark and ignite something in all of us to finally stand up. Tama na to. Paano ba to?